Today we will outline a study plan for every elo between bronze and plat. And don't expect the stupid regular tips like don't die or don't do this or don't do that. I've been told by people many times that they want to hear what to do and not what not to do. So I've listened and tried to make you a general study plan for each of these elos. So firstly though, I want you to start tracking what you're doing to improve, like what replays to look for the things I will mention in the video, track how often you lose fights and how, track how often you die randomly, and so on, so that you can find your progress and not be completely clueless of the state of your gameplay. So yeah, also I want you to do drills like the CS drill, mouse accuracy training, and so on. And regardless of elo, learn basic plans for your champ and watch people who know how it works. So an example plan for a lot of champs is to slow push, crash, base or ward or dive, and then fight on bounce. So plans like that. So you know at least generally what your champ wants to do, even if you can't really adapt from it too well. So also make sure you study up on macro a bit, for example, pushing out waves before objectives, so that you're not completely griefing. But without further ado, we can start with iron and bronze. So for you, I want you to open laning and focus on CSing. If you can't get 7 CS per minute, keep doing drills and keep focusing on it. This will be your main priority every single game. Get good CS in lane for early items and keep farming side lanes, jungle camps, and mid to end up in a strong position. And then just clicking on the enemy is going to be enough to win more than you lose at least, since you have more items than the enemy. So as long as you're just average at least at fighting, you should be good on that. I want you to fight whenever you press tab and you have at least 1000 more gold value in items than the enemy that you're trying to fight. If that's the case, I want you to actively look for a fight with them. Lastly, I want you to study your deaths and figure out how you die most often. And then you need to implement things which will prevent that. So if you die on side lane, on enemy side of the map, pay more attention to the minimap and move away when the enemy is rotating to you. If you die in fights, adjust how you approach fights. Maybe play them slower and let your team do more at the start and so on. This should be plenty to escape bronze and iron, but generally the game plan for you is to farm to power spike, so your levels, ults, or items, and then abuse that to get a kill or objective. And if we look at the CS that this man has, everyone in the game has nothing, basically. Yeah, so moving on to the silver slums, where you get robbed of your LP by indecent men. Now you should have a pretty decent level of farm every game, so that's pretty good. Do implement the things that bronze players are told still, because you're not really above them, because you have to remember that for you to climb, really all you need is to win 1 game more than you lose out of 10, basically. Like, you just need to win, well, you need to win 2 games more than you lose, so 6 out of 10, but it only takes like turning 1 game that you were otherwise going to lose. So yeah. Here, I would say that we can add some new things. So in this elo, I see spells being wasted on the wave completely, so then you get traded on or something, which is pretty bad, or all-in. For example, a ksante W on a wave, that's pretty bad. So remember, if you do spam spells on the waves, you will run out of mana and get fought when you have cooldowns. So I want you to be patient and last hit with mostly auto attacks, and then sometimes use some spells to push when it's needed. The general rule would be to not waste them unless you need to crash right now if the enemies are in lane. If the enemies are not in lane, then you can kind of freely use them to push, but do remember you can still run out of mana. So at this elo, we will now start thinking about wave management, and I want you to have some level of intent with your wave. So for example, I want you to freeze or slow push whenever that is appropriate, and this is something that you just have to study really. So not in a general plan sense anymore though. So before we were saying, okay, so I want you to just pick a plan for your champion and just stick to it every game. But now I want you to adapt and just like decide the basics of wave management and figure those out so that you actually apply them. So think about that. And after early game, your general game plan is the same as bronze. Catch side waves, jungle camps, show up to fight for important objectives, for example, dragon or baron, but only if you do want to fight for them. You need to decide your own fights, and you need to not just follow blindly. A general plan for you is to set up waves in a way where they can help you fight or the enemy can't play, and turn that into kills or objectives, because not too many people are going to even be managing waves at this rank. So if we look at the CS this time, the CS across the board is much better. Some people are almost reaching 10, so that's pretty cool to see. Next up is our yellow snow rank. Do not eat this one. Also, if you've noticed, I've been using Kai'Sa gameplay in the background because I want you to compare how each of these players plays at their own elo. So the bronze player, the silver player, gold, and then lastly the plat player. So that we will see if you can also spot the differences between how they play. So we now want to get even better at wave management. So we will actually want to learn how it properly works and not just the complete basics. So you have to study that up. Then obviously do all of the bronze and silver tips that we mentioned, because you can't really be worse than them at those, so that wouldn't be good. And now we just want a solid game plan after we take towers. So for ADC, I want you to move mid lane or top lane, take those towers, then farm mid waves, and whenever they are being shared or you crashed, look for something to do. It can be jungle camp, side lane waves, fights if you're strong, and so on. For mid and top, I want you to go side lane, collect some camps, and show up to fights when you will have a man advantage from splitting or when objectives spawn soon. In this rank, I want you to focus on the very basic parts of laning, these being tracking cooldowns, trading, spacing, and so on. Your end goal is to have an okay understanding of waves, to be able to properly trade and farm and so on, and start thinking about matchups more. So what do enemy champs do? What do your champs do? Are we poke? Are we all in? Are we whatever? And then after that, it's just a matter of being more proactive. So find times when you can click on the enemy. For example, if you have item advantage, if you have HP advantage, level advantage, wave advantage, whatever. The general plan for you is going to be to use leads from trading and punishing the enemy and so on, to all in off that for kills or objectives. For example, here, the Caitlyn is very low, so right now, even the Kai'Sa could just fight her, right? Like, just look at this. See, like the Caitlyn is half HP, but the Kai'Sa is not proactive. This is going to be a big issue with all of you, where you're going to be too focused on some things, and then you miss out on others. So okay, we're like freezing, but they're going to crash anyway, right? Yeah. So here we have pretty good CS also. You can see that pretty much everyone is on pace for 70 or 80 at 10 minutes. And if we speed it up a bit, this guy basically already reached 70 anyway. And half of the lobby is reaching it soon. So that's pretty cool. I think that's the main things you should focus on for this elo. Finally, I'll talk about plat elo. Here, we'll see the opposite of the last rank, where the people are a bit too proactive. Now, we still do the things we talked about in the previous ranks, but now most of you will end up playing too aggressive, die to ganks, flip, whatever. So here we will have to relax and focus on tracking junglers, recognizing if we are strong or weak side, and decrease random aggression. But instead, we will now punish more when we do have a lead. For example, a 500 gold lead is already something to punish with if you find okay trades. We will fight even more when we do want to fight, but not when our teammates do. Only when we do. And we will try to get wave management to a pretty solid level now. Not just the intro level, now we actually want a good level. So we want to actually understand why high elo players do the things they do. And In lanes, while you were told to trade more before, I want you to relax more now and let enemies come to you. Still do trade, of course, but most of you end up forcing a bit, so I recommend you just play a bit more back than you would normally, and then punish when the enemy inevitably walks into you instead. You would be surprised how easily the enemy will walk into you if you just relax in these elos like plat or even diamond. Because these people, they try to get a lead so much that if you're not doing anything, they will end up doing something. And most of the time, the one that does more will end up ending it a bit because we're not so good at forcing it. Because if you think about it, I only told you that you should start being really proactive in gold. So these people are just starting to be proactive, right? They haven't really learned it yet. But there's also a pattern where basically in every elo, people learn something and then they climb to the next elo. But then in the next elo, they start doing that like too much, which is pretty interesting. So I recommend you to play a bit more back than you normally would. Punish the enemy, and then in these ranks, it's even viable to play much further back, as if you're not forcing trades, the enemy laner will, as I said. And the general plan for you is to use spell and summoner cooldowns to turn them into kills or objectives. Here we will also start preparing for objectives early, so if a big objective spawns in 1.5 minutes, you should base as soon as possible. Buy all you can, and get in position to fight. Most of the other stuff that you can learn in these ranks are going to be pretty situational and player dependent, but these things are pretty general. For example, right here, when we have the clip, it's just, okay, well, we thin the wave and then we do something. But this guy's not doing too badly on it. But now see, like Morgana has cooldowns, and yet we keep trying to do stuff. And the enemy's being useless while Morgana has cooldowns, which is pretty interesting. And do remember to mute all in all of these elos, because there's no real reason to talk to your teammates, because your teammates, if you listen to your teammates' calls or information or whatever, it's going to end up being not your elo, but your elo plus your teammates' elo that's represented on your profile. Because remember, if you're silver and you listen to your silver teammates' calls, then you will stay silver, because you're listening to silver players. Right? So you need to be the deciding factor. If we look at the CS here, I know it's a bit later than the other clips, but still something. See, now we end up lower CS than actually in silver and gold. Because while they were hyper-focusing on it in silver, in gold they started focusing on it a bit less and focusing more on trading. And now suddenly we have less CS, because people are fighting all the time, see? So you want to control more your fights, and then you want to farm a bit more consistently, because you're actually losing out on quite a bit here. Yeah. So that concludes this video. If you liked it or want more like it, then leave a like and subscribe. And comment if you think I missed something, or if you would like to see more videos like this, or maybe if you would like to see a different type of video. Either way, comment what it is, and I'll see you next time.